microphone for Adam Hmada!
All right, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing? All right, I like it. Most of you are like, we're not clapping again. Just get to work, bitch. You know, it's good to be here. I'm from New York. I was born and raised here. We got New Yorkers in the room. Anybody? All right. Remember, this is Bushwick. Never mind. I like being from here. I do think we get a little cocky about it though, because nobody like really chooses to start a family here. You know, like my parents didn't come here because they just loved hearing loud Spanish music at 4 a.m. Like they weren't like, man, I can't wait to wake up to gasolina every single day for the rest of my life. You know? Like, I feel like most people just hear, like, birds chirping outside their window in the morning. My alarm is ta-ka-ta-ka-ta, ta-ka-ta-ka-ta-ta. All right, good 8 of you got that. The rest don't know any Dominicans at all. One thing I hate about New Yorkers, though, they all think they're very real. You know, like, I feel like everybody I grew up with is like, I'm just too real all the time, no matter what. It's like, no, you're just a bad person. That's, you know. If you hear somebody say, if I'm being real with you, it's going to be some, like, deeply hurtful shit, you know. It's like the no homo for douchebags, you know? So he's like, if I'm being real with you, if I was as broke as you were, I'd kill myself, you know? Like, why would you say that at my birthday party? You know what I mean? That's just a little... But, you know, I'm trying to travel, get more cultured. I came back from Japan not too long ago. Yeah. All right, hell yeah. It was cool. It was one of the coolest countries I've ever been to. I knew it was going to be great, too, because that flight was like 86 hours, you know? Like, I was in the air so long, I was like, I need to talk to the pilot for a second. I've seen 3 sunrises. Is he lost? You know? I got Google Maps on my phone. We could figure this out together, you know? But, you know, that trip made me realize how American I am, because we are kind of, like, ignorant when we travel abroad. Like, I stepped out the airport. I was like, why is everything in Japanese? You know? They need to learn English so I feel included, you know? And I knew I'd be going there for months. I didn't bother learning any Japanese at all. The thought didn't even cross my mind. I was like, why would I learn the language? We won the war. That's not, you know. But I think it's just my upbringing. I never learned about other countries in school growing up, only America. Like, I always thought, like, geography was the study of rocks. If you didn't get that, you're just as dumb as me, so, you know what I mean? But I learned so much, like, useless shit about very random people. Like, I know everything there is to know about the founding fathers, you know? Like, I had one teacher spend, like, a whole class period talking about how, like, George Washington had fake wooden teeth. I was like, there was nothing else in the curriculum that you could have taught us? I feel like if George Washington himself could see that, he'd be like, why do you know so much about my teeth? Why isn't this classroom segregated? These kids should not be together right now, you know? Right. I just don't know how to know, like, all that about, like, grown men that wear, like, powdered wigs and stockings, you know? Like, every founding father just looks like a drag queen that didn't make it. Like, they got, like, hooked on meth after their career failed, you know? Imagine how their wives felt. They were probably coming home like, Thomas, are you wearing all makeup right now? He's like, I'm signing the Declaration with the boys tonight. I gotta look good. Yep. She's like, you spend all your time with those guys. What about your family? He's like, bitch, get me my blouse. You know what they say? I went to public school in New York my whole life. I think you go to a public school in New York City, you get everything you need to grow as a person, except in education. You know what I mean? Like, you end up at a 5th grade reading level, but you learn how to do credit card scams, so it balances out. But you meet all kinds of people, which is cool. Like, the 2 most famous alumni from my high school are an 18-year-old rapper that just got out of jail and the United States Secretary of Treasury. That's range, you know? I think more rappers and politicians should go to school together. It would make politics a lot more entertaining. Like, if Joe Biden came out to that debate with a gun, it would have changed everything. Dude, if he walked out, like, everybody keeps calling me old, but this pistol's 22, you know? I don't know anything about politics, though. I'll be honest. I think it's because they're all so old, you know. But then none of them are, like, distinguished seniors. It's like a distracting old. Like, I watch a politician talk, I end up staring at, like, the loose skin on their neck. I'm like, damn, I kind of want to touch it a little bit. Dude, I love when they get mad, too. Like, somebody brings up immigration, that neck titty starts shaking. Like, even their names are old. There's a politician, his name is Newton Leroy Gingrich. Like, you ever hear somebody's name, you just know how they feel about Mexicans, you know? Like, I would never vote for that guy. I don't know his policies. It's just his name sounds a lot like a STD, you know? Like, what the fuck is a Gingrich, you know? It feels like foreshadowing a little bit. Like, remember Anthony Weiner? The guy who got caught sending dick pics to minors? How did we miss that, you know? His last name tried to warn us, you know? That's why you'll never catch me in a voting booth for Chlamydia Johnson, you know? I don't know, 'cause, you know, politicians, they will let us down, and then nothing happens. You know, that's why I think we should be allowed to hit them, you know? If you're doing a bad job, you should just get assaulted for it, right? You should be able to walk into the Capitol building and be like, you deported my family, we gotta talk outside for a second. I don't care if you're 85, put on a fresh diaper, get your ass outside, you know? See, I was raised Muslim, too. We got any Muslims in the... All right, never mind, I'm Catholic. You know what I mean? I'll switch up the set, don't worry, you know what I mean? Remember when Jesus rose again? That shit was crazy, you know what I mean? I am a Muslim. People call us terrorists a lot. I always found it kind of like ironic though, because I feel like, you know, our biggest hit to date is still 9/11. You know? I feel like we can't even take full credit for it. It wouldn't be fair to George Bush. You know what? I'm just joking. I'm just saying, calling us terrorists is like calling Jennifer Lopez a musician. I love J-Lo, but she's the Bin Laden of music, you know? We had a couple of hits, but we give them way too much credit, you know? And they were both at the Diddy parties. I'm making that up. I have no idea if that's true. But I think it would be hilarious to imagine Bin Laden at one of those freak-offs. Dude, I feel like he'd just be looking around like, damn, these infidels are wild, you know? Is that Usher on a leash? When in Rome. Like how 8 of you like that, the rest are just uncomfortable a little bit. America will call us terrorists, but then they'll turn around and be like, you got any more of that oil? You know? We act like drug addicts over that oil a little bit. Like we went over war over it like 4 times in 20 years. That's crackhead behavior. That'd be like if your drug dealer wasn't answering the phone instead of finding somebody else. You were like, get my gun, I'm going over there. You know? Bring democracy to that crack house. You know that? But you know, it's ironic because America will still do business with the Middle East, right? Like they kind of treat us like the side chick that they don't want to date publicly. You know, just like sending you up text to Saudi Arabia at 3 a.m. They're like, where you at? I'm drunk, I'm coming over. You know? Leave the back door open, I don't want the neighbors to see us. Like, why do you think all these like Saudis have expensive cars and mansions? That's America's way of being like, take these presents, don't tell my wife. The wife is Israel. All right, I'll move on, my bad. You know, it's worth a shot, you know? I'm getting paid $10, might as well, you know? But yeah, I'm from New York, so you grew up around all kinds of people in this city. I actually have a German friend I found out recently was adopted by Jewish parents. I feel like, dude, that's the smartest way to get revenge I've ever heard in my life. I feel like they saw that Aryan-ass baby at the adoption store and were like, yeah, we want that one right there. He's getting circumcised tonight, you know? Walk him through Berlin with a yarmulke on, you know? Like, meet our baby boy, his name is Fuck Hitler, you know that? You know, I respect it. I'm Algerian. My people were occupied by France for over 100 years. I would do the same thing. I would adopt like a French baby and raise a Muslim, you know? I would name him something crazy too, like ISIS Al-Qaeda Jenkins, you know what I mean? Be the first person to rock a Dior turban, you know? And I love him like he's my own, you know? I'll never miss a game or a recital. I only beat him on French holidays, you know? I'd be like, put your hands up, son, it's Bastille Day, you know that? Algerians, they still hate the French a lot. Like, my mom would look for any excuse to shit on them. I remember one time I got her perfume for her birthday. She was like, did you know the French invented perfume because they don't shower? I was like, most people would have just said thank you. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know how that was your first response. But it's like, as I got older, I understood it. Like, I found out in 1961, French police lynched over 100 Algerians in Paris and then covered it up for like 37 years. And I learned about that right before I went to Paris for the first time. So, you know, I was pissed. I was on my way to the airport, like, I'm smacking any croissant I see, you know? You know, but once I got there, I had a lovely time. It was a wonderful city, you know? Dude, I really wanted to hate it, but after like 20 minutes at a cafe with an espresso, I was like, this is magical, you know what I mean? I could really live here. I think I'm gonna do it, you know? Europe is very different from America. I feel like, you know, they're a lot more open than we are, especially like sexually, you know? I swear prostitution was legal in a bunch of places. I saw advertisements for live sex shows everywhere. And I'm from New York, you know, it's a wild city. But even I was walking through Europe like, these sinners will feel the Lord's wrath, you know? America has all the same stuff. I think we're just a lot more low-key about it, right? Like, we have prostitutes, but we're ashamed of them. Like, that's why we call them escorts. That word doesn't even describe the job. Like, I've been escorted out of a Panera Bread before. There was nothing sexy about it, you know? But he was wearing lingerie. I didn't see no titties, you know? I'm not like a bright dude. It's not good that I do stand-up. I don't like read enough to be talking out loud to groups of people this much. Like, I hold pencils like this. Dude, sometimes when I'm writing, I'll stick my tongue out a little bit, too. I don't think I'm, like, dumb. I'm just very, like, opinionated with, like, zero facts to back those opinions, you know? Like, I'll argue with people sometimes. I'll be like, all banks are evil. They'll be like, why do you think that? I'll be like, nah, I was hoping you'd just agree with me, you know? All right, you guys are great. I'm Adam. Enjoy the rest of the show.